like you shared a story about a girl who went on a trip in the mountains and learned something completely different about her life. You didn't take me on a, hey, Dave, you want to do a retreat and learn how to be dads? No, we were going to climb a mountain. And yet the mountain taught me that day. Like, and it taught me in a way that changed me.
We're back. It's been a month, Dave, since you and I did this last time. You didn't listen to any other podcasts?
Nope.
I did. Because I did them.
You listened to them like in 3-second pieces over and
over again as I edited them as well. Which actually is funny. That's a whole different side story in and of itself, is editing a podcast. How much more I retain what people said when I edit it.
That makes sense.
Than I do when I'm actually interviewing people. And it's funny because, like, as I listen to myself talking to other people, I go, oh, I am paying attention. It's not like I zoned out. I totally am listening. But as I listen to what they said, I'm like, oh, but I missed that they said that thing, and I don't know how I missed that. And anyway, that's just podcasting 101. This podcast is not about making a podcast. This podcast is about learning in the outdoors. You and I were talking off camera before we started about like what we're going to talk about in this episode. And I think when I really boil it down, what this podcast has become or is becoming, I'm very interested in barriers that stop people from exploring and understanding the outdoors. I think that's a theme for sure. And I say that because I'm one to talk. Like, I'm somebody who will routinely come up with reasons not to go outside. Mm. And I continually have to go through that's not a thing. You can go outside. You just have to do it. You have to like count backwards from 5 and then just on 0, go and do it.
Right?
Yes.
Just put on your coat. See what happens.
Yes. And just step outside.
Yeah.
And so that's partly why I think I'm interested, is because I find it's so easy in the world that we live in to justify not going outside. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to just be like, why should I go outside?
It's the perfect temperature in my house. Yeah. Always.
Yeah. I don't have that issue. You do. I don't have that issue.
My couch is so soft. The carpet's soft. Everything's comfortable in my house.
I'm usually overheating and I should go outside.
That's true.
But I'm curious now, and I know in the previous podcast, I don't know if we brought this up, but you are a part owner of a company called Faces Education. Mm-hmm. And just to give some background, well, you can probably give more background.
Yeah. I mean, Faces Education, we're a company who is interested in facilitating awareness and character building experiences for students.
Hey,
it kind of lines up with
it's an acronym.
Yeah. Faces. And really the backdrop of that whole character building experience for students is the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so, it's, we're going to have 600 participants again this year, experience learning in the outdoors. And that learning takes place, with some very intentional outdoor activities, but also just being in the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To me, that there's 2 big questions that I'm on a mission to try and solve. Mm-hmm. Okay, 3, but like 2 on this podcast. But number 1 is, what are the barriers? I guess this is a 2-part question, but what are the barriers that prevent people from going outside, and how do you address those barriers? And then the second question, which is a lot more related to Faces, is why? Why does the outdoors function so well as a backdrop or a delivery system for learning.
Mm-hmm.
Why? From your perspective.
Yeah. Are we going to explore that, or do you want me to try to answer that right now?
I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. I'm look as we were setting up here and we were doing sound checks. I looked behind you, and there on my shelf is a book that I still haven't finished reading, but it's called Engaging Minds. And to me, it's one of the most dense books that I've read about learning. And it's all about how learning works. From a brain point of view, to a systems point of view, and everything I read in that book talks about the interconnectedness of learning. That when we're learning, we're attaching ideas and concepts and knowledge and feelings to other ideas and concepts and knowledge and feelings that we've previously learned, and that learning is not linear. Learning is cyclical.
Right.
And so, like, really, I think nature, the outdoors, it provides that backdrop because it is those things. It is multi-connected. There's nothing in the outdoors that is standing on its own, right? Everything is a part of something else and functions within that, and depends on other things functioning in their way. And then, of course, the cyclical nature of the outdoors. Whether that's seasons or life cycles or water cycles or sunrise, sunset, etc. Like it really mimics how we learn, or maybe our learning actually mimics how nature works.
Mm-hmm. We are nature.
Yeah.
There's no separating those two. I know we often we like to try and make them very distinct from each other, but we are.
We are.
There's no way around that, because we're nature, because we are part of this system or this world. Wherever that is. I call this for people their nature conversion story. Mm-hmm. But it's bigger than that. And I know for you, it's not going to be just a one-time event. I want to know what your journey along that has been like. Were there moments in your journey where that became apparent to you? Mm-hmm. How, like, your connection with nature. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even your relationship with nature, if you want to.
Yeah, my conversion to nature, or whatever we want to call it, really is a gradual one. I don't know that I've sorted through it, so we're going to sort through it now.
Okay.
Like really, I'm going to share some things that I've never considered before.
Okay.
And I'm going to connect the dots of some things, and by the end of this, I'm going to have a different realization, I believe, because I never would have identified as a nature person until probably 10-ish years ago.
Okay.
But when I think of my childhood, I grew up, in a hamlet that was all acreages, and surrounding that hamlet were the farmed fields of my neighbors and of my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my ancestors. And that's the place I grew up. And I mean, my summers away from school were spent roaming. And, I guess I didn't think of it as nature because it was my backyard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I played in horse pastures, and I played with the neighbors' goats, and I rode my bike through the ditches and off into the fields whenever I could. And I mean, I learned about birds and loved watching the hawks fly and the meadowlarks sing. Probably went and talked to the cows all the time and went and visited the pigs. like that was just how I grew up. And I mean, we planted a garden, and I loved those things. I did those things without knowing that they were special or knowing that maybe not everybody experiences that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until probably moving away from those things and, really burying my head in some of the adult world aspects, where suddenly you're stressed about school and your career and you start to forget some of those things. I think what I'm saying is that I didn't even realize how much of nature those things were until probably deep into my 30s, when I would go back to those places and feel something. And that's what I would emphasize in my own story of nature, is that nature to me, more than anything, it's a feeling. And it's a place where I feel a certain way. And probably the best word I would use to describe it is connected. Like I really can feel that I am a part of that, and that it's in me and I'm in it. And so, I drive out to the area where I grew up several times a year. That's where we store some of our Faces equipment. And so, when I go out there to deliver equipment or to talk with Rick that I work with, like just driving down those roads and through those fields and seeing the view, right? You can see the Rocky Mountains from there and the river valley, the Belly River flows through there. It doesn't take me back. It takes me somewhere. It transports me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what nature does for me the most, is it transports me somewhere else, but into someone else. Yeah.
Quick question in between there. Do you think that's because that's connected to your childhood? Like, is there a part of your childhood that gets not remembered, because you're reluctant to use that word, but it gets revisited or
yeah, I think I know what you're asking.
The emotion or the feeling, is there a part of your childhood that kind of you long for?
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. I would like, I think I can differentiate that part out. I notice the nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
And I like that, but it's way more than that.
Okay.
The nostalgic feeling is the initial, like, oh, that's cool. There's my house, or there's the ditch that I used to swim in when we had lots of rain one year. Like those are fun memories. But no, what it actually is doing is taking me not back to my childhood, but back to a time where those things seem normal to me, where I was a part of those things, where I wasn't an interloper, or I wasn't intruding on it. I really was just a part of it. Whether I was tasting the plant, that the inedible plants, just for fun, or watching a bug do whatever bugs do. Yeah. Like I was just a part of it.
Yeah.
And I believe children are better at that. I mean, children are, that's their natures.
Yeah.
And so I think it takes me back to a time where I was just more pure in my experience with it.
I don't know if I'm tapping into that or not. Now, I haven't actually considered that is one of the things that it could do or is doing when I go into nature, that it might be kind of pulling some of that experience back. Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever even connected those dots before having this conversation. I haven't ever.
And I've never articulated this before either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like this really is.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I hope that the people listening, don't kind of like, oh, they just made that up on the spot. It's like, no, we like.
Yeah, no.
I've been texting Dave like, should we talk about this tonight? Should we talk about this? And like, we didn't really come up with
This wasn't even one of the topics.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. here's what I want to say about that. I think when you and I like first talk about going outside, I know I do. I think of, I need to drive to the mountains and do a hike.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to go on an expedition somewhere.
Right.
And that's my initial thought about the outdoors. I need to camp. I need to sleep in a tent and be surrounded by the forest.
Right.
And those are a part of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually deeper than that. I really, that's why I started with that childhood experience. And I've never connected the ditches and the fields of rural Alberta to my experience, backpacking with you in the mountains, or trying to climb a mountain and do some, rope work and glacier work, and and yet they are very connected.
Yeah, and interesting you say that, because I've gone through a cycle where I didn't connect those when I was doing them, when I was learning those things.
Yeah,
I was enjoying the thrill of doing those things.
Yeah.
Certainly my childhood experience with nature probably moved me towards, yes, there's more I can do, which is, these fun things. Since, as I've gotten older, I've really felt that, like, am I here to like do these crazy activities? Is that a thing that I need to do? Or am I here because I need to like work on me, or I need to like work on my relationship with the outdoors, and maybe have something a little more personal, as opposed to an epic, harrowing, death-defying experience. I've kind of switched that, and I mean, I'm aware that I wasn't always like the gung-ho, go crazy and do the craziest things all the time. That's not my personality.
No.
I think there's a time when I was trying to make that my personality, and it didn't fully stick, because I kept, part of me just kept resisting that because of how much more I was like, yeah, it's fun. I love being up in this crazy high mountain, but I kind of want to like explore. I don't want to just like check a box. I want to like,
Yeah, I never sensed that you were a peak bagger.
Yeah. There was a time when I was trying to, and now I'm more in the like the ones that I've done, I feel confident about those ones, but I don't really need to go and, check anything off of a list anymore. I want to keep that relationship with nature going, and I want to feel, connected. I think you said it right. I think that's the important part of my relationship with nature, is to stay connected. Now, I didn't think it would go into this direction, but it is making me think of this other thing that I'm curious your opinion about this. Nature, being in the outdoors, can be very therapeutic and very beneficial for a person's mental health. However, if you're in a mental health state of depression, and I'll just say that from my own experience, it doesn't solve it. And in fact, in some ways, it doesn't actually like certainly not it would not fix it once, twice, 5 times in a week. And being in the state that I'm in currently, it is excellent at keeping it away. So going into nature for me now is like one of the best, not a therapy, because a therapy is something that you're doing to address a problem, right?
Yeah.
But it feels more like not a remedy. It's
preventative.
A preventative measure or preventative practice. Okay. I've found that there's a couple of things. There's a couple of reasons why I'm doing better now than I was like even, 2 months ago. One is medication, and not I'm just going to say this for the listeners, not the stinking depression meds. Those things are horrible. At least they didn't work for me. They work for some.
Yes.
They probably work for some. I don't want people to be like,
they
he said on the podcast that they don't work. I give up.
Yeah. Everybody reacts
Everyone reacts differently. And I had some really
yeah.
crazy reactions too. I tried 3 different kinds and just none of them seemed to work. I think one of the issues was ADHD, and that was really a big one. So that's helped a ton. But I still, it's like right behind me. It feels like depression's waiting for me. It's waiting for me to slow down and stop and feel unmotivated. And so the second thing that I'm doing is getting outside and going in the outdoors. And that feels like, it's kind of like, okay, you're still there, but you're trailing behind me. And, you know, by going outside in nature now puts that distance between the depression and me. So, now I'm saying all that and like, is any of that ringing any bells for you?
Well, yeah. And I mean, I didn't think that we'd go to my backyard skating rink in this episode.
Okay.
But let me tell you about that.
Okay. I want to hear about this.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a number of years, many years of my adult life that, you know, the Canadian Alberta winter would roll in and I can't say I was depressed, but I certainly wasn't happy.
Yep.
And I certainly was thinking and looking for something to get out of it. And I would do that every winter, the cycle. My family joke about, you know, the years that I would talk about, we'll probably just move to New Zealand. I don't think they have winter there. Or, you know, looks beautiful. You know, New Zealand's the perfect place to live because you got mountains and ocean
and not long winters.
Yeah, you know, blah blah blah. One year though, I visited my relatives and they had flooded, you know, their backyard a little bit and made a little bit of a skating rink, but then had given me the rink liner that they had used. And I'm the kind of guy I like to build things, and especially if I have a free thing to build with, it's like, oh well, I'll build a rink then. And so I built a backyard rink. And I mean, I don't know if our listeners are all from Southern Alberta. Southern Alberta is not the place to build a backyard rink because we have the Chinooks, and so it's not like it.
What's a Chinook? Just for people who are
the warm winds that come in over the Rocky Mountains and warm up the winter temperatures. And it sounds nice because it's like, oh, winter's over for a few weeks. We have this nice January thaw. But what it means is that the wind blows, the clouds roll in, the temperature just fluctuates up and down and up and down, and ice melts and freezes and melts and freezes, and like it's not really always awesome. But what I found was that by building a backyard rink, there was so much to either do as far as maintenance on it. So the ice, I had so many problems with it the first year that I was always outside fixing it, repairing it, or skating on it. And that winter, like I was outside all the time, and not in sunlight. I mean, this is January in Canada, and so I mean it's dark at 4:30 at night. You know, and so I'd be out there in the dark. Sometimes the stars would come out and I'd be out working under the stars, or I'd have my headlamp on. And what I noticed after that winter was that I never once felt that sense of longing to be somewhere else, and that sense of emptiness that I have felt for years for winter. And so ever since then, I decided, my backyard rink isn't really about skating, although I really enjoy skating, and the exercise is great, but it's about getting me outside. And you know, even thinking that way now, every year is a successful rink, whether or not it melts or freezes and melts and freezes, or whether or not the ice is perfect, because no matter what, I need to go outside, have fun or work. and it's really helped. It's really helped a lot. So much so that I now feel little twinges of sadness when things start warming up in March.
Wow.
Like actually, like
Wow.
I'm like, no, like winter was awesome this year. I love winter. And I have come to love winter. I've come to love okay, I've traveled recently to a place that doesn't really have seasons.
Okay.
Right? It's similar temperature year round. And I've traveled to those places in the past and thought, it'd be so cool. It'd be like a nice, not a hot summer day, a medium summer day all year.
Mm-hmm.
And lately, my thought is, I would really miss the seasons. I would really miss the cyclical nature of it because of the own process, or the process that it affords me of just going through different experiences, and therefore I can reflect differently and experience things differently.
Yeah.
So winter right now for me is a time to pull in. The darkness is actually pretty nice, not because I love darkness, but because it requires reflection. But then darkness also allows me to love the light that's coming. And I do. I love the solstice. I love the idea of the return of the sun. I love watching the sun come up earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
The stars that go with it and the light, like it just all, well, it does what you're talking about, right? It provides some sort of, it's not a cure for mental health and mental illness, but it helps prevent things from getting out of hand. And I think it helps keep us centered and focused.
Yeah. I'm resonating with everything you're saying because I've been through a lot of that too. With like my relationship with winter is similar. It's not the same, but as a kid I hated it. Yeah. Like just hated it because of how limiting it was, right? And then it took a few experiences with it to really help me to really appreciate the seasons. And one of them was spending time in Puerto Rico, right? And coming back from Puerto Rico and I remember coming off the plane and seeing my breath. And I hadn't seen that for two,
since
for 2 years, really. And so I come back and I was like, oh, like I forgot. Oh, that cold little bite. Yeah. It was like November. Biting on your skin. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, like it was this like flood of emotion of like, oh, I forgot about this. This is a thing. And it's funny how that made me love winter from about that time on. When I, went to Puerto Rico, I was like excited to get away from winter. I was like, oh yeah, no more winter. And then when I, came back, I was like, I missed it. And I've learned over time, because it was not like I suddenly loved winter again. I still hated it. But over time, I like you're talking about, it's the seasonal change that I've learned to love, because I feel it's really, it's to me, it's the demonstration of art. I look at the season changes as nature's artwork. It's such a great example of, natural art happening right before our eyes. The weather changing is such a fun thing for me to experience, and looking at clouds and understanding and going, oh, I can feel that there's going to be a change. I can see that cloud over there, and that means that the weather's going to probably change. That feels like artwork. I'm watching artwork in front of my eyes happen in real time. Like fall is like hands down the best season. I don't care what people say. Like there's going to be people that are like, no, it's summer. No, it's winter. No, it's fall. Fall is like the best season hands down of all the seasons. Yeah. Now
I'm curious. I think there's more to your word artwork.
Okay.
Than some might understand or know. I want to ask you about that. Like I mean, some people hear art and it's like, oh, like a pretty picture. But I think you're saying more than just a pretty picture.
Yeah. Like when I say art in the general sense, not in the like a specific, one-time sense. Well, this dips into my theory, not theory. It's my like understanding of nature now. Nature is such a fantastic teacher, but it's more than just one thing. It's a teacher, it's a mentor, it's a muse, it's a it's a painter, it's a sculptor, it's so many things at the same time. And because like artwork for some people is the same thing. A person looks at art and they learn things and they are inspired by it and they see things and they connect to it and they make, these different connections for themselves. Well, that's what nature does for me. I go into nature and I get all of that. I'm connecting, I'm learning, I'm understanding things about myself that I didn't understand before. It does all the same things. Literature does the same thing for people too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, to me, that's an artistic connection. That's an understanding on an artistic, creative level that, like I say, other people get that from art in the same way. So to me, it's one and the same.
Yeah. That's what I thought you were saying. I'm glad you got to expand that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. Because I throw stuff out sometimes and people are like, yeah, he said words. That makes sense. I want to come back to my original question for you, which was your journey, your understanding of your relationship with nature and how that's developed over time. You talked about how the skating rink became something that was like metaphorical as a change for you. Anything else to add to that? Like, yeah.
Well, sure. And it ties back to my earlier comment about I can easily get caught up in the idea of, the outdoors is an expedition that I go on. I need to plan a multi-day backpack trip to experience the outdoors.
Right.
And yet, like I realize with my rink that no, like 5 steps from my kitchen table is the outdoors as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can go there every day.
Yeah.
If I want to, if I choose to, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's that same sense of connection and importance that I described in my childhood. Like I'm curious about the expeditions in the outdoors because there is something about those.
There is. Yeah.
That, I guess in some ways it's more immersive, like sure, I can go for a walk right now in the coulees here in Lethbridge, the valleys, the river valleys, for those that aren't from Lethbridge. And that's nice and it's wonderful and it can happen frequently, but there's something more immersive about living there and sleeping there and waking up there and, just being more a part of it, I guess.
Okay.
And we've been on some pretty, what's the word for them? We've been on some expeditions together that have been life-changing.
Yeah.
Like really.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to explore that even.
Okay. Let me ask this question at the outset because what you've described is, the outdoors is right there. And a lot of people hear that and be like, well, duh. Like, of course it is. Do you think, this is a bit of a leading question, but do you think that those expeditions that we've been on have made that experience here in your own outdoors more rewarding? The same? No effect? Like, does that have any effect on your experiences, doing your rink, for example?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it does.
Okay.
I believe it does. I believe the intensity of those experiences, right? There's an intensity that comes when you're absolutely tired and not sure you can take another step.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in nature and is nature going to kill me today? Or is actually nature going to take care of me today? Right? When you reach those places and then you return back to where you live, I think it's for me anyway, I can see it and feel it. I am more sensitive to it. Yeah, I'd say it raises my sensitivity.
Okay.
So that, I don't have any cliffs in my backyard that I might fall off. But I can still sense the awesomeness of nature, right? Or the ocean has huge waves. I love the waves of the ocean, and I can feel the power of them as they roll in. I don't have that in my backyard, but I can still sense and feel the power, that as the trees grow, as the trees bud, like there's a power in that, huge power. And so I guess by learning to feel it in big ways, then you can become sensitive to it in smaller ways.
Yeah, because I asked that question already knowing the answer for myself.
Yeah.
But not fully articulating it well enough like you have. Mostly just kind of like, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it has affected my understanding of those smaller moments. And yet I don't know what the exact connection for me is, other than really how you said that.
Yeah. And again, that's not a thought I've ever had before.
Okay. Rather than maybe go further with that, because I really want to explore some of not the details of the trips that we've been on, but the effectiveness of going on those kinds of trips, the expedition style types of trips. You talked about how that like, am I going to live or die? I wouldn't say, I think as a youth, I felt that a lot more. As an adult, I guess I haven't had too many of those real near death experiences. Certainly some crazy stuff.
I probably haven't either.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I'm going to.
Right. It can be, and like I've been in my head before about stuff where I'd be like, I don't know what to do now. I'm constantly thinking. I'll give an example. I fell in a crevasse when I was doing glacier travel years ago, and that has since got me really like spooked about walking across glaciers. Yet before that, I was just like, what are we worried about? Like, I don't know what the big deal is. And then, and since that, I've just been so like, I mean, I was fine. Like, all things considered. No, seriously. It wasn't that big of a deal.
It's not a big deal.
The like 3 people that were there will attest that it wasn't that big of a deal. Right.
Why? Why wasn't it a big deal?
Because we were safe. Because there were 4 people. 1, 2.
Because you had roped 4 together?
Yeah, we were on a rope.
And you followed rope protocols?
Yep. I mean...
So if you hadn't done any of those things, how would you be doing?
Yes and no, though. Like there's a bunch of factors in that one that actually I've thought about since. Of our team, really... no one really knew all of the things to do.
Sure.
Right. Setting up an anchor.
You'd read the book.
Sure. Yeah. We'd all like, oh yeah. We would have been figuring it out for hours trying to figure out how to get me out of the crevasse had I gone in seriously.
Uh-huh.
But I just went up to my, up to my armpits.
Oh.
And, made a big hole. My feet were dangling underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But I crawled out, pushed myself out. And, because the people in front and behind me pulled the rope tight. That's what saved me, ultimately, right? Now, had the person in front of me gone in and disappeared out of sight, I don't know if I would have known exactly what to do other than back up and try and pull him out with my own just brute strength.
Right.
And that's actually not a great way to plan. Like
No.
I've learned since that that's a horrible strategy.
Yeah.
It can get you out of some situations if you react fast enough. But like people have died doing, with that kind of mentality going into anyways, I'm exploring something that has become for me kind of a like, do I really need to go out on a glacier again? I've done it now and I feel it's great. I I don't necessarily get filled up while I'm hiking across a glacier. I love the experience. I like taking people,
Mm-hmm.
if we're going to explore it in a very non-threatening kind of a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I get a little nervous around the idea of going out on a glacier with people that don't know what they're doing. Different story if it's someone who's rescued people before or who practiced. I've done that since then and felt much more confident about that and going, yeah, okay, I can do this. But if I were to take people for the first time out on a glacier, I don't know if I could do that. Yeah, I honestly, yeah, it's like if you and I wanted to go out on a glacier, I would say, well, we need a third, and they have to be experienced, and I'd need to feel,
That's not like the glacier travel we've done.
No, like, and that to me that was like I had done that one before. I knew there was little to
no crevasses
problem up there.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say there's no. We're probably walking across some of them.
Yeah,
we don't know, but like I didn't feel.
That's how you got me all across the glacier.
Yeah, I was like, I've already done this. It's fine. It's no big deal. I'm pretty sure we're okay.
Yep. I was also counting on you pulling me out.
Yeah.
And you were not counting on me pulling you out.
Yeah.
You were counting on not going in.
I was just like, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think I put you in front.
I don't remember, but I remember you put me wherever it made sense.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't be rescuing.
You wouldn't be the one pulling me out. Yeah. When I think of the ingredient of those kinds of expedition, the secret ingredient there is struggle, is something that's challenging physically, mentally, emotionally. When you put all of those together into the soup of an expedition, as long as they're not like way overwhelming, like completely unmanageable, as long as they're in that realm of what you can do, or just pushing you outside of that a little bit, those trips are fascinating, and like those are like some of like you say, life-changing experiences, and not everyone knows that. Okay. And for me, as somebody who I'm always trying to get that message out there, that like this stuff is it's life-changing. It's the kind of thing that I wish everyone could experience, because as a result of those life changes, you're a better person, right? You can go from being somebody who might be a really like gruff and, not a nice person to be around, to having those kinds of experiences in the outdoors and going like, I'm not the most important thing in the whole world anymore. I'm I can be connected to other people too, and I can, consider the my actions have impact on others, and that to me is the beauty of what those kinds of trips can do. You can't get that gardening in your backyard, right? You're not going to take your next door neighbor that is racist and yelling all kinds of slurs and take him gardening, and suddenly he's decided he's no longer
right.
However, I've heard all kinds of stories about people who have a change in their heart and the way that they see other people through the outdoors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's a sense of awe that can happen in those very big landscapes, where like you do sense your insignificance in it. And therefore, to me, once you really sense your insignificance, you also sense your infinite nature, right? Like they become the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm infinitely small, I'm also infinitely large.
Yeah.
And like I have an image in my head of the valleys that where Astor Lake connects or sits there with Mount Joffrey and the other places there. And like I cannot describe how large that landscape is. Like it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
I can picture it, and I have pictures of it that I look at, and all it can do is make me remember how I felt being there. And like the idea that like there's a peak there, there's a peak there, there's a peak there, there's a peak there. And I could walk this entire day just around those peaks. And yet they look like they're right there because they're so large.
Yeah.
And like that changes you. Changes you to be there.
Yeah, that was part of what motivated me to want to be a guide when I started getting into guiding.
Mm-hmm.
was experiencing that, and not experiencing it for myself anymore. I felt that need to give back and to like help other people find that. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. This is a cool story. I don't know where we are for time, but who cares?
You're the editor.
Yeah, it's me editing it anyways. So when I started out guiding, I was just doing like little day hikes, and I'm the world's worst businessman. Like I don't think about, making money so much as like helping people to have a great experience. So I'm great at providing a really custom, this is great. Even with the videography that I do, I suck at kind of like, here's the formula for success. I just like push that aside and I go, let me just give you the best possible video you could ever get. Anyway, that's how I was doing my guiding as well. Any trip that I'd planned, I'm like, well, we can't do those boring trips. We have to do something awesome, right?
But we can only pay $25. Oh, well.
Oh, well. Yeah. I'll just suck up the cost myself.
I'll pay for it.
I also suck with money. But anyway, so I had made these different trips, and one of the trips I had planned out was a trip to, where was Grotto Canyon? That's what it was. And one of the clients had joined. She was this young, like, college age girl. She was the only one, so I ended up like getting my daughter to come with me, so it wasn't awkward, me guiding this young female client. Anyway, so we went out to Grotto Canyon. It was a beautiful day. I enjoyed there the trip. Very cool canyon. I don't know if you've ever been through there in that area around Canmore. It's a great place. Anyway, came back from that, and I was I felt like, oh, it was fun. She seemed to enjoy it. And, we saw some pretty cool little sights along the way. I didn't think much of it at all. 2 weeks later, she signed up for another one with some of her friends, and we went up to another hike. Anyway, that's kind of sort of, that doesn't sound like much happened there. And I didn't think much had happened until I got it was the email, and I've been looking for this email. I can't find it. But I definitely know I got the email because I talked with my wife about it, and she remembers me telling about this email. Mm-hmm. She sent me back an email saying, I just want to tell you what an impact that has made on me. 2 weeks after she went on these hikes with me, she was in an abusive relationship with her boyfriend. And she got out of it. She left the abusive relationship, moved to New Zealand, started doing hiking like regularly, became part of her life to the point where she felt like it empowered her to make positive choices about who she was going to be and the direction she was going to take her life.
That's life-changing.
Yes. Here's the kicker with all that. I didn't say in our hikes, hey, are you in an abusive relationship?
Yeah.
You should get out of that. You should probably leave that, jerk and figure out, how to control your... That didn't even come up in the conversation. I don't know if it came up as they were talking with their friends. I don't think so. I don't recall hearing anything along those lines. All I remember is her seeming like she was having a great time, like she was enjoying herself, right? And so, to me, that is so powerful. If you think about that,
so powerful.
That's not some kind of a paid. What you do it's somebody who's a psychologist who's got skills in, let's figure out what's in your life needs to change and let's ask the right questions to get you discussing. None of that happened. It all happened internally, and not because of something I did either. That was simply because I wanted to take someone on a trip, and that person had a great experience during that trip. They connected. They made their own connections. They had thoughts throughout that trip that went something along the lines of like, I really like this. I need to start applying what I'm liking out of this to my life now, and shifting how I think about, the things I'm doing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's invaluable.
And that's what nature does.
Yes. It's the happiness medicine that I think we don't quite understand just how great it can be. And I want to maybe I'll throw this one. I'm talking a lot, but I'll just give this last little bit here. I recently came out the happiness, whatever thing about all the different countries, the happiness report.
Yep. Index, right? Something like
Index,
that.
I think that's what it is. The happiness index. Yeah. Now, Canada's not doing so hot. It's been slipping for the last 10 years. Used to be number 5 in 2012. It's like 15, right? Last year's 13.
And we blame the government.
Oh, it's always the government. It's going to be the government fault. I'm less interested in what people here have to say. I'm more interested in the ones that are consistently happy over time.
Sure.
And the one thing that stood out for me was, it's because Finland seems to just like rocket
every year
after year.
Yeah. It's the saunas.
The president of Finland listed amongst several different factors, but listed as one of them was access to nature.
It's true.
And the fact that was brought up in the list makes me think, like, why isn't that something we're discussing on a political level? How come that's not like, up there alongside with, social programs and taking care of each other and all the other things that Finland has going for them? But why isn't that also a part of that? Because I don't think I've ever heard it. I don't think I've ever heard a, head of state. I've heard senators or, people that say we should be getting outside more, but I haven't heard any heads of state, North America, other places other than Finland, say in a thing, why are we doing so well? It's because of how good we have it with nature. Okay. Lots to talk about, but what are your thoughts on some of that I kind of spewed out here?
I keep thinking of a story that I want to share.
Oh, go for it.
I need to, I want to see if I can find my prop.
Okay.
It's right over here.
Oh, go for it. Now I'm curious. Just in case I keep this in, Dave has a mysterious object in his hand. Oh, it looks like a rock. So I'm going to say it's a rock.
This is fun.
Okay.
We're going to do an experiment.
Oh.
I know this is, for the listeners. So I have a rock in my hand. It just needs to be wet a little bit. I'm just wetting it.
Now, is that wet spelled with a W-H-E-T, or is that...
Isn't it the same thing?
Is it a wet stone?
Right? Yeah, like physical props really don't mean a whole lot in podcasts, do they?
It's partially a video. There's video watchers.
Exactly.
You got me so curious now.
Okay, so I'm just going to hand the rock to Nathan here for a minute.
Right.
You need to just kind of hold the rock kind of like that. You see, so the flat edge of it, right? Yeah, right there. And kind of just like hold it so that it's catching the light. Just whatever angle you need to hold it at, so that like there's some shadows being cast by the the bumps in it. Don't turn it though.
Oh.
Yeah, like
that?
Yeah, like that. And then just
catch the shadows.
Just a little bit.
Need to crank up the contrast.
Yeah, maybe you need a light from your phone here or something. I don't know. Oh yeah. Can you see? Like, is there a word in there?
Take your phone.
Yeah.
Sort of. Like, are these initials?
What do you see?
Is it D-O?
It's a D for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 3 letters. Can you see 3 letters?
So I initially thought D is the first letter, but I can't really see the other ones.
Is it dry?
It has dried.
Here, it's got to be wet.
It's got to be wet.
It's got to be wet.
Okay.
Good luck editing this.
I think we all have stories around rocks and finding meaning in rocks. There's I just like I've tons of rocks, but not just tons of rocks. But like, I shouldn't say tons of rocks. I have a box of rocks, and I can tell you where every one of those rocks came from,
Right?
and the story behind it, the time when I picked it out. So
Okay, here we go. So I'm not a rock collector. Like, I'm just not.
okay.
I have 2 rocks. I don't even remember where that one came from. So this one, you were taking me to climb Assiniboine. And we were going up the back way through British Columbia. And we were...
Assiniboine Lake.
Bluest
lake I've ever seen.
Yep. Glacier travel.
Yeah.
And like I've always been a pretty nervous expedition guy. Was nervous again. You know, we were a rope team on a glacier that might have crevasses in it.
Right.
And so definitely in my head, at one point on that glacier, I looked down, and I wasn't overwhelmed at that point. I was still I was engaged.
Okay.
But I remember looking down, and just there, right in the snow on the glacier, was this rock. And it was just sitting there, and it was wet by the glacier, and the way the sun hit it, there were 3 letters, just really clear. Like, it just jumped right out, and I read the word. And it was D-A-D.
Oh.
Yeah. It was Dad.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm a dad. And that's actually one of the most important things I am in my life. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I picked it up and I put it in my pocket. And we kept hiking that day. But the next day was when we made an attempt to summit Assiniboine. And if you remember, things weren't going great that day. You got really sick. I ended up partway up that mountain with a couple people I just met who didn't really know the route. And I mean, long story short, I had to bail. I had to bail on that attempt at the summit. And I left them I was like, I'm sorry, I can't go on. At that point, I couldn't swallow. I tried eating food and I just couldn't even swallow it. I was done.
Yeah.
And so they were going to go on and I was just going to wait. And so I found a spot on that mountain to wait. And that mountain is known for its exposure.
Oh, yeah.
And so where I was waiting I had a ledge above me so that I was protected from rock fall. And, but I just had to sit there and wait. And I didn't know how long they'd be, hours maybe. And so I just sat there and waited and like my feet are dangling over a little ledge and, you know, like I'm not really going to tumble off the mountain, but it feels like you're going to tumble off the mountain and you can see this view, but below you, thousands and thousands of feet below you is this beautiful valley. And I just remember, sitting there and I would rotate through doing a little walk and picking up rocks to keep warm and building a rock wall to protect me from the wind. And, I was just doing this over and over and over to bide the time. And while I was sitting there, like I was really nervous still. And all I wanted to do was get off the mountain. And I remember looking down at, what's the lake down there?
That would be Magog Lake.
Magog Lake.
Lake Magog, yeah.
And there's also the lodge
Yeah, the Assiniboine Lodge.
Assiniboine Lodge and the little like motel things.
Yep. Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I was nervous is because conditions on the mountain were great. There was the verglass.
Yeah, the verglass.
Verglass.
It's that like little layer of ice that forms over top of the rocks.
Exactly. Yeah. And the kind of cloudy on the mountain and a little bit misty.
Yeah.
But I remember looking down at the lake and the valley and the little lodge, and the sun came out, and it was shining right on them.
Oh, yeah.
And just in that moment, I just remember that the thought hit me, and it was like, why aren't you down there? Why aren't you down there where the sun is shining in that beautiful place? Why are you here and not there? And somehow my brain put together this rock and that valley into some like deep, deep learning in that moment that, oh, I can do this and I can come climb mountains. But the real mountains in my life right now are being a dad. And that's what I really want to master. And I really want to get better at that. And when we returned from that journey, I was a different person. I just had a more clarity as to who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be, and how to go about it. And so I did. I put a lot more time and effort into that role of dad. And what, like, you shared a story about a girl who went on a trip in the mountains and learned something completely different about her life. You didn't take me on a, hey, Dave, you want to do a retreat and learn how to be dads? No, we were going to climb a mountain. And yet the mountain taught me that day. Like, and it taught me in a way that changed me. And so I still look for Dad in the rock.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story, Dave. I had no idea we would get
I didn't either.
to this. And honestly, because I've never heard that story before. I knew about your, your struggles on the mountain. I knew that was pretty impacting for you because you've hinted at, what, that experience was like. I remember that story just feeling like utter guilt for not going with you guys.
And yet you couldn't.
But I was like...
You were sick. You were really sick.
Well, the part that like... Yeah. The day before, we had to climb this slope that was easily like 2 steps up and it felt like 3 back.
No, it was.
It would we'd climb up and it would slide back, and we'd climb up again the same slope and slide back. We just do this over and over and over again
with huge backpacks on.
Yeah, with full backpacks
filled with like climbing gear.
Yeah, it was.
What were we doing?
It was just so draining.
It was draining. Yeah.
And then I don't know if I'd picked up something. I was not 100%. And I could feel that if I would have felt 10 times worse had I gone with you guys and then just turned around and then came back for no reason. So I was just like, I don't think I'm going with you guys. It's hardest decision I've had to make because I was there because I wanted to take you.
Well, yeah, that was right? The whole point. You were taking me up Assiniboine. This was your 40th birthday.
Yeah. This was my
we were celebrating your 40th
10
birthday
years ago.
Wow. No.
Well, not quite 10. 9 years ago. Okay, I'm not 50 yet. But to me that was It was not a failed trip for me, but I did feel that like hint of guilt that I hadn't been able to provide that for you. Now that I hear the story, it feels like
you provided more.
This was far more,
It was.
I remember the day after, actually. That was the thing that I remember the most from it, was the day after going up that little side summit.
Pigeon?
No, that's at the Bugaboos. No, yes. This I can't remember the name of that little peak. It was just a nice, simple, straightforward peak.
Still scary to me.
It wasn't like...
It wouldn't be anymore.
It wasn't just like walk at the park. It had its little challenges, but it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice side little venture, and we got, to do that together, and I enjoyed that. that whole trip is something for me. It just has so many of these pieces that were, I don't know. Yeah, Assiniboine, man, for people who know Assiniboine, who've been there, who understand, you can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but it is, I don't know if there's a more beautiful place, Dave, to be honest.
No.
And you haven't even seen the other side, the side that you looked down and saw, I want to be down there. Well, that's a fantastic place, by the way.
Yeah, I want to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a place you can take your whole family.
Yeah, yeah.
If you wanted to, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go there one day.
Yeah.
Just while we're talking about the side trip that we took the next day.
Yeah.
So my memory of that is that because the day before on Assiniboine had been so, I guess, disappointing or, a failed trip in some ways, that was actually where we processed together the idea of, well, maybe, like, do we need this really risky thing in our lives? Like is this, like I told the story about the rock 10 years later, fully solidifying what that story is now.
Yeah.
The day after, that story wasn't as obvious to me.
Oh.
And so we had started exploring the idea of, like, well, I was like, I don't know if I even feel like I failed, because I don't know if I even needed to climb the mountain.
Right.
I was happy to try.
Yeah.
But I don't care if I stand on top of it or partway up the side.
Yeah.
And I remember we talked about that at length. Like, well, what is success in climbing mountains? And, and really we kind of concluded that, there were different things that nature afforded us and that we could get out of it.
Yeah. I will say this, because this, in the context of climbing mountains, sure, I think everyone says that. And most good climbers will say this. Like, summiting is optional, returning is mandatory.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's a good mantra to use when you're climbing. However, summiting is amazing. When you've summited something that big, and I've been up Assiniboine twice. The first time when I actually got to the summit, one of the most emotional experiences of my life, hands down. It was right next to watching my kids get born, because it was so much work, so much like just mind games, and going like, yes, all of those things are true. But there was a part of me that kept doubting, will I actually make it to the top? And then actually getting to the top, and then the feeling of being up there and just being like, just that accomplishment that I've never felt that level of an accomplishment hit so hard and so immediate. It was, that was life-changing. That was definitely life-changing. And yet, it didn't make me go, I just want to climb mountains all my life. I want to just keep doing this. In many ways, I climbed less mountains since, I ended up climbing Assiniboine. I didn't, I wasn't seeking out to try to get to the tops of mountains. I still would climb mountains, but I wasn't like in the quest to try and check off peaks,
I want to check something in what you just said.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just really described summiting Assiniboine well and the emotion of it. But I know that you've shared with me in the past what that meant for you. And I think as we explore how nature teaches us, it's important, I think, to identify, well, what did summiting Assiniboine actually mean for you? Because you had your eye set on that for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And you did a lot of work to gain the skills to do it.
Yeah. So
talk about that for a bit.
I think from the first time I ever saw a picture of it, I was like, that's beautiful. not I'm going to climb it, just what a beautiful mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Like
It is.
and you didn't even get to see it from the aspect that it's most beautiful, but I've seen
the pictures.
The pictures.
Yeah. Like there's no more beautiful mountain in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe other beautiful mountains.
Yeah.
But not more.
Yeah. It takes your breath away. Then and I went 2003 to attempt to climb it. And this was about 10 years out. Nah, that's not true. 7 years after I had first seen it in a picture. I was like, okay, went with a friend of mine. We went up and attempted to.
But even the attempt, like, here's what I remember you telling me.
No.
You saw it and you started to get in your head, oh, I can climb mountains.
Yeah.
But to climb mountains, I need to learn a bunch of skills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like you started learning skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reading books.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet wasn't even a thing yet.
Yeah. but the time that I went, and the first time, 2003, I had very little skills. In fact, we approached it almost like, oh, it'll be just a challenging hike.
Okay.
We did bring a rope and harnesses. That was about the extent, and a bit of gear to protect us from falls. But there was not, a concerted effort.
Were you a climber at that point?
No,
I didn't know what to do with the harnesses.
No, that's the weird part. Like I didn't even really know how to belay properly, Dave.
Huh.
That's how inexperienced I was.
Yeah.
I knew how to rappel. I had done rappelling before.
Okay.
But belaying somebody else climbing, wasn't in my skill set. So I completely went into that blind and like was well over my head, physically, but what to do in these. No, I didn't know any of that stuff. And so I came back from that very much tail between my legs and in awe of the mountain and just kind of completely in love with it, but convinced that, there's a lot that I need to do and get in place in order for me to do that. Long story short, I did all the things. Like I took the courses and,
so was that initial trip kind of the one that was like, oh, if I want to do this?
Came back 2 years later with my wife to just go down to the base, down to those lodges and look at it. And that was the real like, oh yes, I will climb you. Right. That was going to happen. And then 2 years after that, I did climb it. It was one of the big accomplishments of my life, I would say. Really, it feels very much like it changed a lot of things for me. It made me realize that I can, if I want to do something, I can set everything onto that thing, and I can do that thing if I want to. If I really want to, I can make it happen. Right? Yeah, that was the big thing that really taught me, because I'm a self-doubter. I constantly, even like, yes, I learned that, but it's not like, and then after that, everything that I ever wanted became true. Not even close. Nope. But it taught me that it was possible. That things that I, if I really want to make something happen, through sweat, blood, and tears, it can happen. It's work. It's a lot of work to make stuff happen, but it is possible. And yeah, that is invaluable for me. If I didn't have a strong connection with nature then, before that trip, it was so ingrained into me. Like I don't know if I can say this about any other place, but that mountain has a soul. There's something personal about that that area. There's something sacred
Oh yeah.
about that area that for me feels so like I mean, I'm reluctant saying how beautiful it is on this podcast because I don't want people to like, go flocking to this place to, ruin it. Cause it's such a beautiful place. It needs to be almost like limited who can go there. Mm-hmm. Not because people shouldn't see it, but because, there's morons.
Yeah.
There's just people that don't really think about what they're doing. And, the good news is there's no road to get there.
No, yeah. The good news is you got to walk.
It's hard work to get there.
Or hire a helicopter.
And the people that go in the helicopter usually might go about 100 meters from where the helicopter dropped them off, and then the next day get back on and go home. Anyway, my big lesson, my big takeaway from my experience on that mountain is I saw that I have far more potential as a human being than I ever would have thought possible. And like I said, I didn't go on and just, and then that led to more mountains. And then I climbed Everest, and then my life was, no, I never saw that as some path that I needed to take. Mm-hmm. But like you said about your experience, you needed to be a dad. I need to be more confident in who I am. Mm-hmm. And I need to realize that regularly, that I have value and that I'm I've got skills that, are worth sharing and that I can accomplish things. Yeah.
Really, we've been talking about, all these ideas of how does nature teach us and why does nature teach us? And I mean, we've just heard 3 different stories of 3 different people and 3 really different things that nature taught us. And I still don't know that I know the answers to those big questions we've asked, but it's clear to me that nature provides teaching in a way that is like what the individual needs. It's very personalized teaching.
Yes. And to bring this full circle, the obstacles, the things that get in our way from experiencing that, what I believe, I've always believed this, at the core of those obstacles is your own kind of butting against it. Your own, you're your own worst enemy. Mm-hmm. You get in your own way more than anyone else or anything else could possibly get in your way. Nature won't get in your way in the way you think it will. It will just do whatever it does, right? It will be harsh. It will be, the barriers will be there naturally. You'll be your own worst barrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think that's, in some ways, we've both came to that realization about being a dad, being, accomplishing, feeling confident. Mm-hmm. I was in my own way of doing that because I hadn't really seen that I had that potential, or that was something that I needed to be. And nature, that roundabout way taught me that I could. Yeah. Well, there you go. We solved pretty much, not all, but pretty much every problem out there. It's pretty easy, folks.
Yeah. Go climb Assiniboine.
Or
go in your backyard.
Yes. Or make a skating rink.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been fun, Dave.
It has been good.
Yeah. I think this will be a good episode. A lot of people, all the thousands, no, I shouldn't say that, the tens of people that watched the first episode, because it is our most popular episode. They'll be excited to hear this one because this has a different flavor than the other episodes.
Oh, very. Yeah. I think a little more focus. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, this one's more focused? Oh, this one's way less focused.
Actually?
Well, than our last one?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
I thought I could tell you what we talked about.
Yeah.
There was kind of a theme.
I thought you were comparing it to like the other episodes I've done with the other people.
Oh, no.
Those have been super focused.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think in the end, most people will be kind of like, I didn't care that they went all over the place.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the, we'll see. We'll see in the comments.
Yeah. Leave some comments. Let us know.
Yes.
I mean, we can adjust what we're doing here, but really, I think at this point, it's, two long time buddies having good conversation.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, Dave.
Yeah.
I assume most people will enjoy hearing the friendly nature of our conversation.
I think so.
Oh, right there. Look at that.
Oh.
A camera has decided not to record anymore. Oh. It's a good sign.
I guess we're cutting to the wide angle now.
Thanks everyone for sticking to listening. If you do have a comment, feel free to, you can, there's a thing in the podcast. You can leave a voice message, through the podcast.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Leave us a voice message. I want to do an episode where Dave and I listen to the voice messages and kind of comment on those. If you have a question for us, feel free to ask us. We'd be happy to answer.
Yeah. Very happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for letting me come into your house.
Oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may do another episode as it gets warmer. I'd love to do one of these outside.
Outside.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Especially as the nights get longer too.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah, I got more to say. So not tonight.
Oh yeah, no.
Like
future episodes.
Yeah, like more and more things come into my mind as we talk.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay, we can probably end it there. All right.